Welcome to the American Institute of Stress's official podcast, Finding Contentment. The goal of this podcast is to highlight new information about stress and stress management techniques. While we understand that stress is a very personalized issue and different for everyone, we hope to help you find your own way to contentment.
Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome back. This is your host and executive director for the American Institute of Stress. It's Will Heckman. Welcome to the official podcast of the American Institute of Stress, Finding Contentment. I wanted to tell you guys that this past month in the newsletter, we sent out a free stress management course. It's a gift. It's the holiday season. We want to give you a gift. It's cool. And it's the American Institute of Stress Wellness and Wellbeing course. If you did not get it because you didn't subscribe to our magazine or our newsletter or anything like that, you can still get it. Just subscribe, of course, and then send us a note or something like that. And we'll just send you the link to it. It's a great course, and you're going to love it. Not only that, but right now on our site, we have added an AIS certified free course for teens. It's called Introduction to Stress for Teens, and it's available right now. All you have to do is go to stress.org. It's absolutely free. So if you subscribe to stuff every once in a while, you get free stuff. So make sure you do that. And speaking of subscribing, I have to do my YouTube thing. Right now, if you're listening or watching, hit that button over there and please subscribe. Hit the like button, hit the bell button. We appreciate it. It only takes you a moment. It means a lot to us. Also, don't forget, go on stress.org. Subscribe to those magazines. Now, on this show, if you've been listening to this show, you know we have always strived to bring you the very best leaders in the field of stress and mental health. And today, we've succeeded. We're going to be speaking to one of the best. That's Brett Cotter. Brett is an author. He's also the founder of Stress is Gone, which helps people release stress and anxiety and heal trauma. He has taught his signature method to Fortune 500 companies, hospitals, schools, nonprofits, and even military bases. He has an easy-to-use technique that helps people go from feeling overwhelmed, which we're going to talk about today, to being empowered with confidence and clarity in our lives. And he is the author of a great book. It's 3 Keys to Managing PTSD, The Warrior's Guide to Overcoming Trauma, which, like everything else on the planet, is available on Amazon. Amazon better start sponsoring this podcast. He's also accredited by the International Mindfulness and Meditation Alliance. He's certified by the American Institute of Experts in Traumatic Stress. And we're proud to say that his core method has been certified by the American Institute of Stress for quite a while now. So find out more about that. That's all you have to do is go to stressisgone.com, which you'll see at the bottom today. And so please join me in welcoming Brett Cotter. Brett, thank you for being here, man. We appreciate it.
Will, thank you so much for having me and for that wonderful introduction. That was awesome.
You know, people say that to me. I didn't do any of that stuff. You did that stuff. So you're welcome, but thanks for doing that stuff, you know. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you started out, you studied psychology, and psychology is a very wide field. How did you get interested in stress and PTSD and stress management and things like that?
Yeah, so my first job out of college transferred me to California. And after a few years living in California, I started getting into things that Californians do, right? Meditation, holistic wellness. And
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, I really wasn't accustomed to that stuff growing up in Queens, living in New York. And after I was there for, 3 years, when I was 27 years old, I was in another relationship and I had this huge issue, and it was jealousy. And at this point, I'm getting into like meditation. I'm starting to understand myself a little bit better. And I was like, wow, I've had this problem for a long time. I realized I had the problem since I was 16. So I realized the pattern, which was after I'd been in a relationship for about a year or so, I would start to have these jealous reactions in the relationship, and it was terrible for the relationship. So I was in love with another woman. I was 27, and what do guys do? We try and fix things. So I decided I was going to try and fix it. Long story short, bing, bong, boom. I ended up sitting down with a healer in Sedona, Arizona.
Wow.
So that was mind-blowing for me, just, growing up in Queens and New York, and all of a sudden being in California for a few years, and now I'm in Arizona, sitting down with a healer, and I'm telling the healer I'd like to release and let go of this jealousy problem. So within 5 minutes, the cellular memories bubbled up from my body to my conscious mind, and I was watching my parents argue when I was 5 years old. And the crazy thing was the way they were fighting was exactly the same pattern on how I was fighting with all my girlfriends since I was 16. And once the core memory where that pattern set place inside of me was surfaced to the conscious level, then I started feeling layers of jealousy unlock and release from my body. Underneath that was anger and rage. When that lifted up, layers of sadness were underneath the anger. And underneath it all was the fear of abandonment. And this all came up in a 90-minute session. And when I left that session, jealousy was no longer a problem in my life. My life was changed in an hour and a half. And to me, internally, that was miraculous, right? And ever since that day in 1999, I've been walking towards that energy and that healing. And that's what I do now in my retreats for groups. And that's also what I do in my private coaching. But that's how I got into this whole field of stress relief, from really identifying that part of my life and that pattern in me that I wanted to change. And then I found a way to change it.
Well, two things. One is that's very inspirational. I'm going to be honest with you, because a lot of people, similar background. I grew up in Brooklyn. I've been to California. Totally different vibe. You're right. It's a more laid back vibe. I was a young man also, so I understand finding those things. But congratulations on finding it at such an early age. It's very hard to do that. And the reason I say that is because I want people who listen to this show and watch it to understand that it's doable. If you're really having that angst, that anger, that emotion that is ruling your life or ruining your life, that's stressing you out, there's something you could do about it. I don't have to tell you the statistic that I've heard is that 75% of doctor visits are stress related.
Yeah.
Similar things like that, they can make you sick. So I think that's very inspirational, and I'm really, really happy that you did, because the things you talk about that I've read on your site are right on the button. Sorry, guys, that was my dog. He's my number one critic. You talk about something that I've always talked about. I call it a different thing, but you talk about when people hit their limit, the limit of stress and anxiety and becoming overwhelmed. I call it the tipping point from the old book. When people reach that tipping point, you're going to tip over into something bad. I wanted to ask you, though, because you deal with it a lot more than I do. Do you feel that's happening more often now?
Yeah, I feel since the pandemic that the fear of the unknown was activated throughout humanity on such like a mass scale. So I feel like underneath, our stress, we have these certain fears and certain beliefs, which make us more susceptible to stress. But once the fear of the unknown gets activated at that level, especially like the first year and a half of the pandemic, that I feel brought us, over the tipping point, or at least close to where some of us are dancing back and forth with the tipping point. And to me, it's really the core fear, right? And that's what the essence of my work is, going into the body, surfacing the fear and the fearful beliefs that are in the body from the traumas that we experienced in our formative years, and releasing that tension from the body and the psyche. And that sets you free and totally changes, your propensities towards stress.
But why
And
is
makes
it,
you more resilient.
okay, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I think the pandemic had a horrible effect on people's psyche and mentality, but a lot of it, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know more, it was perception. Was it just, just the way I live, just where I live, but I didn't think it was that scary. To me, it was okay. Yes, I think we're overplaying it a little bit, because I've seen bad flus where people have died from, and then it's coronavirus. It's the other things that they piled on top of it that made it really scary. Closing down businesses. People lost their buildings. I knew of a guy who had an apartment building, and they said, well, people don't have to pay rent. He still had to pay his mortgage. So they had financial stress, all this stress piled on top of it. Is it just perception?
So you bring up such an interesting point, perception. And to me, perception is where it all starts in the moment, right? When we're stressed out, our perception gets narrower and narrower and narrower, like tunnel vision, where it's like I must run or fight or freeze to stay alive. When we start to unlock and release all the tension in the body, our perception gets wider and wider and wider, and we start to see more and more options. So perception, I go back to like my definition of stress, right? Stress is just a reaction fueled by fear and, triggered by a perception of danger. So it all starts with that perception of danger, which your formative years impacts how you perceive the world. If there are a lot of unresolved traumas and fears and fearful beliefs in you, you're going to perceive a lot of things as danger. And your stress reaction is going to get triggered a lot during the day. So, I'm curious to see what you have to say about, perception and maybe the differences between certain people. Some people that are more resilient have a perception that they can handle it, right?
I agree with you. And when you say it is different for everybody, when you say some people can handle it, I think a lot of it has to do with our nature. If it's your nature to be happy-go-lucky, you're going to be happy-go-lucky if atomic bombs are going off. If it's your nature to be a worrier, I'm guilty of that. You're going to worry if it's a sunny bright day and you just won lotto. Sometimes you have to. It's the awareness of what your nature is, and saying, okay, am I really truly having something to worry about or to be stressed about? Or is this, somebody once told me, ask yourself, is this going to be important in a year? Oh, well, that's true. Not really, no. So forget it. So you're right. It's the way people perceive things is causing us a lot of stress. I also think it's the age we live in. We live in an age where it's such a small world. I know what's going on in Ukraine. I don't care, but when I was a kid, I didn't know there was a Ukraine.
Right. And usually about the bad stuff happening in Ukraine or all around the world. Right. So we're getting flooded with the worst stuff that's happening around the world.
The president of AIS, Dr. Dan Kirsch, has a great saying that I always steal it from him. And he says, to charge your phone, you have to plug it in. To charge your brain, you have to unplug it. And it made a lot of sense to me. Yeah, if you want to work better, you got to unplug sometimes. And I think people forget to do that. And I also think it has to do with age. Guys younger than me, like yourself, who are still in I hate to call it the rat race, but in their prime and in their, have a lot more stress because they deal with it on a daily basis. Stress is different at when you get a little older, and it still happens. And then when you get actually older than me, life can become even more stressful for elderly people for whole other reasons. You spoke momentarily about something, and I want to talk about that because I think it's such a great thing. You talked about your anxiety and trauma recovery routines.
Mhm.
I know you just had one from the time of this recording, and I want you to tell us about that because I always thought that a retreat is the perfect thing. It's one of the things the pandemic did is it separated us. Even a counsel or a psychologist had to do it through a screen. If you could go away to a different environment and focus on yourself with coaching, with help, how great is that? Tell us about your retreat.
Yeah, so retreats hold a special place in my heart. So when I mentioned that healing session that changed my life in 1999, I actually ended up doing a lot of retreats with that healer in the mountains for a week, going deeper and deeper and letting go of more and more tension from my body. So I've been doing retreats of my own since like 2003. And a few years ago, I started doing summer retreats at the Omega Institute. And that's a 1-week retreat. Our next one is this summer, June 11th to June 15th. And that's a 5-day retreat at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. So the retreat we just finished was at a place called Honors Haven in Ellensville, New York. It was amazing. And 12 brave souls showed up that we were in the room with. And this was the first time that my wife actually worked with me. She led the morning movement, the Qigong sessions. And then I led 4 group healing sessions and 2 evening movement / dance sessions. So it was the whole experience was 2 full days. It included 4 movement sessions and 4 group healing sessions. Now the group healing sessions, they go for about 2.5 hours. And we're in a circle, right, sitting, and we have like nice comfortable chairs. We have the back jacks or the yoga mats. You could either lie down on the floor with pillows. You just get comfortable in this kind of like circle, right? And one at a time, I ask people what they're there to let go of. And as we're going around the circle, tension will start coming up and emotion will start coming up in participants' bodies. And when the emotion comes up and the tension comes up, they put their hand up. So once I see hands go up, then I focus on that person. And then I start asking them a few questions that I've been honing over the last 20 years, which brings up the core repressed energy where that emotion set into their body. So within, let's say, 2 minutes or even less sometimes, we are back into the household that they grew up in. And they are unlocking and releasing the memories from their cells and from their body and from, quote unquote chakras, right? From different areas in the body. And as we're doing this, you actually feel the tension come up out of your heart. It could leave right from there, or it could go through your shoulder and leave from there. Sometimes it comes up through the neck and the head and leaves through the top of the head. But you actually feel layers of tension peeling off your body like you're peeling back an onion, until there's nothing left but wide open space inside of you. And we've gotten so far a few amazing testimonials from the retreat, which we're going to start posting today. One was from a psychotherapist that was there, and another one was from a licensed clinical social worker that was also there. And in their testimonials, they talk about the feeling as the tension and the emotion lift up out of their body. So that's really like the miraculous part of the work. And it's always a special moment that gels the group. And after a short period of time, everyone starts to realize that even though they come from different backgrounds, different races, different sexes, different religions, that we all have similar tension in our body, similar emotional sources. And when we let it go, we feel that same relief. So the gelling and the bonding that happened in the group is really one of my favorite, parts of leading retreats. And this retreat was really special because everyone that participated in the retreat gets the master class, which is like 22 videos that goes through all of my techniques. And it includes like the Stress Is Gone healing sessions inside these videos. And it also includes meditations and a subscription to our live weekly meditations. So it's kind of like a lifestyle change when you come out of the retreat. Because I don't know about you, but I've been in retreats, as I was going through my kind of like awakening phase. And sometimes it was a great experience. And then when you get back home, it all just kind of fades away, and then you go back to your same habits. So I feel like the Stress Is Gone retreats are different in that when you come back from the Stress Is Gone retreat, you have the master class to keep you dialed in and the meditation classes all throughout the week for the whole year. That changes your lifestyle and brings you back to a more kind of centered and kind of like unplugged place. Like Dr. Kurtz mentions, like you have to plug in your phone, you got to charge it. But to really charge your brain, you got to unplug it. So the meditation to me is when we unplug the brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that sounds awesome. I think the follow-up that you give to people who attend these retreats are just astounding. People get a year's worth, and that is life-changing. That is life-changing. One weekend is going to show you the possibilities. It's going to show you, and people are going to be surprised when they release that stress, the physiological manifestation of it, how you're going to feel. I've heard people tell me when things like that happen, they no longer have migraines or things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just awesome. And I was surprised by something. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I was surprised it's not really expensive.
Right.
I
try to keep it affordable.
I looked at it and I said, well, damn, I've spent more than that going on a weekend with my biker friends. So,
Right.
I thought it was in a beautiful environment of the pictures that you had put up. So if you're interested in that, you really do have to check it out, because I thought it was for everyone. I thought it was for everyone. You mentioned that some mental health professionals were there. Were they there to be at the retreat or to learn how to do what you do?
That's a great question. So they told me that when they read the description and that it said it gets underneath the underpinning causes of your stress that are unconscious and repressed, that's when they were like, I got to go to that. So it really gets to what's fueling your stress and anxiety. And it's just like anything else. If you take the fuel out, the reaction has no spark. So after our Omega retreat, a few of our participants there, I remember talking to them afterwards the next week. They're like, am I okay? Like, all my triggers are still in my life, but they're not activating any stress. They're saying and doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there looking at them. I have no reaction going on in my body. Like, they felt completely like they were rewired almost. And I said, look, now you have the chance to step through the doorway, right? You have an opportunity to where you are no longer kind of like at the beckoning call of your body, where you can make more conscious choices around those triggers. And that brings us to the next step of what I teach, is called an authentic response. So our stress reaction, we're reacting the past. An authentic response is when you're crystal clear, your emotions are calm, your head's clear. And when that stressor shows up in front of you, you're able to say something that is for the greatest good of all involved. Not just you and them trying to figure out who's going to survive, but you say something for the greatest good of all involved. And that usually disengages that person's stress reaction. And now that brings you both back to a state of homeostasis, of a stable place of being. So the retreats, they're just such an amazing, life-changing experience. We just got another testimonial yesterday about talking about the tears of joy throughout the weekend that the different participants were having. One woman, once we started a dance session at the end of our first Friday night session, she was crying, and I went over to her and I said, what's the matter? And she said, I don't know if I ever felt what real fun was.
Right. Oh.
I was like, oh my God, I just gave her a hug because she was having so much fun. Everyone was having so much fun. She just started to have these tears come out because it's really emotionally, the retreats are different than anything else I've ever experienced in my entire life. You know,
And I got to tell to the people listening and watching on YouTube that this is doable. It is not, some chanting at a crystal.
no,
This is you. Like Brett said, we got to change the hard wiring in ourselves. Like we talked about before, if your nature is to worry and stress out and to be anxious about stuff, you need to do something about that. Every show I say, stress is different for everyone. There's no one right program for every single person. But the one thing you should never do is nothing.
right.
So if you go away to a retreat where they have a variety of things you can do in meditation and movement and things like that, you're going to find help. You're going to find that release. And that's a perfect example, that woman crying, because I've seen that before. When people release that stress, all of a sudden tears come to their eyes of joy,
Yeah.
because they've never felt that before. How great is it that you do that for people? I think
The beauty of it is I get to receive as the work is being done in the room. So as people are letting go, I'm letting go. I feel tension leaving my body. I feel my mind getting clear. So I'm receiving as I'm facilitating. And that's probably the one thing I love most about the work.
Well, congratulations. Really, seriously, congratulations, because it's quite an accomplishment to help people like that.
Thank you, Will.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is one of the things that you talk about, and that's breath work. And you have something called stress stopper breath work.
Yeah.
I've always been a big believer in it. Well, not always, not until I really tried it. But as a young man in martial arts, we taught to breathe and things like that. But the real breathing to relieve stress, I thought, when I did that, was such a great tool. First of all, it's free. Second of all, it's always with you. You don't have to, it's easy to do. You just have to learn about it. Tell us a little bit about the stress stopper breath work.
Yeah, so stress stopper breath work, it's actually, we'll see if this shows which way, if you can see that, but I have it on this card there.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is the first tool that I had certified by the American Institute of Stress. So I think that was in 2012 that we actually got that certified. And it's a simple 3-step technique that people use anytime they're stressed out, whenever they're upset, or if they want to get to sleep quickly at night. And the 3 steps are: whenever you're upset or stressed out, you touch the tension in your body. For me, it's usually my chest. The next step is start breathing deep and slow. And the third step is, once per breath, silently say, "I'm okay." And you repeat those 3 steps together until all the tension in your body melts away. And that usually takes about 90 seconds when you first start. Now, after about a month or so of practice, and your body starts to get the muscle memory and a really great feel for the technique, you can actually stop stress in seconds. Now, just think about how many years to your life that could add on, being able to stop your stress just like that. And that's where I would love for everybody to be, to have that tool, to have that technique mastered. And it just does wonders for almost every part of your life.
Can I get that card from your website?
Yeah. So if anyone emails me at brett@stressisgone.org, I could get the card out to you. And also there's a
do that right now because I want one.
Yeah, there's a downloadable version of the card at stressisgone.com. When you go to the resources tab, just hit on that. And we have a bunch of tools there, but this is our core methodology, right? This is the core component, because when I was coaching, I think this happened around 2006, where a lot of clients were coming back to me saying, "Look, my life has changed, the trauma's gone, and my biggest triggers are gone that were being fueled by that trauma. But we live on Earth, we're alive in these bodies, we're all going to experience stress at some time. What do I do the next time I'm stressed?" And this technique started to morph and hone from that time till around 2010. And it is in its purest form. Think about how simple this is. Touch the tension, breathe deep and slow, once per breath, silently say, I'm okay. And let me just explain why it works. So the area of tension in your body that you experienced when you are triggered emotionally, that's where all the cellular memories that are fueling that stress reaction live in your body. Now, I'm not talking about sitting at a chair for 8 hours and you're having some back pain or shoulder pain or neck pain. That's a structural stress from your posture. I'm talking about, a trigger with your spouse, your boss, coworkers, family members, things like that, like a routine stress trigger that has an emotional fuel to it. So when you touch that tension, you're actually touching where those old original memories are rooted in your body. And every cell on the planet wants to return to homeostasis. So when the calm cells in your hand touch the tense cells in your body, there's like an equilibrium that starts to happen. Okay. So that touch is very important. And I used to think back to when I was a kid and I stubbed my knee, right? I had to fall off my bike or, ran and tripped and now my knee's bleeding. And then I would think back to like if I was in my grandmother's arms and she's rocking me, right? And after a while, the pain just goes away. Well, what actually happens when all the pain goes away, right? A whole new set of endorphins and hormones trigger in your brain. So, but I went back to like that touch, that connection, that touch. So that's why I feel touch is so important for the healing process. And then the deep, slow breath. Science has shown us time and time again that breathing deep and slow manually shifts gears from stress to rest, right? We can do that. That on its own works. So that's the second step, and that's super important. But the third step to me is really the icing on the cake, which is using the I'm okay mantra. And you say it once per breath, silently in the back of your mind, right? You're doing this technique clandestinely. No one needs to know what you're doing, right? So I have people do this in boardrooms, do it at work, wherever you are. And the I'm okay mantra is the opposite logic of the fight or flight reaction. That core logic is I must run or fight to stay alive. And that's exactly what your body's thinking when you're stressed out. So what do you think happens when your cells are all worried, they're freaked out, right? Now you're touching the tension. Now the cells are getting the life force that it needs in your deep, slow breath. And your mind is sending your body the message that I'm okay. So after a while, your body's going to go, yeah, what the heck am I stressed out for? I got the life force, I got the touch, and now I got the mantra. I have that thought. So I feel like this technique is such a complete, well-rounded solution for in-the-moment stress. And to me, that's why I feel it works. And I have people call me back the next day after getting that card that have had sleep disorders for 10 years, that haven't slept in over a decade, and say, I got to sleep in 5 minutes. So this, does like a deep subconscious and cellular work on your stress reaction. So I encourage everybody to practice it. And whenever you're stressed out, get excited to use this tool, because now you have something, when you're at the plate and the situation's getting hot, you have the ability to take a swing and connect. So I encourage you to practice it, and master it, and have fun with it.
I got to tell you two things. One is that I do it. I do it to get to sleep at night. The same exact thing. And the first time I tried it, it was okay. It was calming. By the third time of trying it, I felt going to sleep was not that big a deal anymore.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is for those of you listening, we get people ask us to certify their products all the time, and their programs all the time. And we take a look at it and go, nope. Brett was so good that that product has been certified since 2013. That's why it's there. We don't do that just for anyone. So I not to brag, but if it's AIS certified, it works. I promise. Absolutely. It's such an easy thing to do. Send them an email. get that card. Brett, we're running out of time. I wanted to talk to you about other stuff. So maybe we're going to have to do another podcast
I would love to.
and concentrate on something else that you work on, which is PTSD. But we're running out of time. I don't want to go too long. And we've learned so much. First of all, about the retreats, about the things that go on in the retreats, about stress stopper, breath work. All those things are actual tools that you can use to help your life, to help find that contentment, especially if it is your nature to be anxious, to be stressed. You need help. We can't do it. We could do some things ourselves, but some things we can't. If you go to stressisgone.com, you're going to find out a lot more information. That, like Brett said, there's a bunch of resources of which I've looked at. They're awesome. Don't forget, he has a book you can read, and that's The 3 Keys to Managing PTSD. Again, check out all these stuff. Brett, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. I really, when I say we strive to have leaders in the field, you're what I'm talking about. You're the guy out there who goes away for a weekend and comes back with healthier people.
Yeah, it's an honor to be able to witness, the transformations that happen in these retreats and the coaching sessions.
Right.
We have a big holiday special coming up for a coaching program. So if folks, don't want to wait till the next, retreat, which is this summer, and you really want to start 2023 with a brand new you, I encourage you to go to stressisgone.com, check out the coaching tab, and you could always book a free discovery call with me where I can understand exactly what's going on with you and make some great recommendations for you.
And I'll tell you what, the one thing that I hear over and over again from a lot of mental health professionals is that coaching works. Coaching works. You have to have somebody who can say, have you tried this? Stop doing that. Sometimes coaching really does work, and it's not always best to use a friend or a relative because they're a little bit too close to the forest to see those trees. Brett, thanks again for being here, man. Appreciate it.
It was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. This has been your host, Will Huckman. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Follow this podcast. Follow us on YouTube. Hit the subscribe. Remember, support AIS. It doesn't have to be much, but we need your help. And I want to remind everyone, just as I did before, that stress is different for everyone. And no one has one program to fit all. So that means you have to tune in next time, where we discuss more stress reduction and stress management strategies that is right, maybe just for you. And remember to visit stress.org to gather information, tools, and techniques to live a healthier and happier and a longer life. And I hope the information that you heard from Brett and myself today will help you find contentment. Good day, everyone.